What is shaking, folks? Johnny Law here again with Roll for Narrative, and today I am asking for your thoughts and prayers because I'm going to delve into something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is how we do Session Zeros in OSR Plus. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself right now, what the fuck is OSR Plus? Well, I'm happy to tell you. OSR Plus is this fantastic project that I've been lucky enough to work on the past 4 years. It was created by a man named D. James Quinn, who we colloquially refer to as DQ. And basically, it's a rules-light tabletop RPG that takes old school play and infuses that with modern story gaming. It is amazing. It has changed my life. It has changed the way I view any TTRPG, including 5e. And the reason is because it's so narratively driven. All the characters are built in a modular sense. So what would be called a subclass in other systems is actually just a kit that can be added on to any class. So you have just this awesome combination of characters you can create, and you can pretty much emulate anything from history and fiction and pop culture. We have a whole slew of characters we call legends, which include Uhtred from The Last Kingdom, Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, all these characters from Avatar: The Last Airbender, just Sebastian Crow from Drakenheim. Like, we've been able to emulate these characters in this system because of the way it's built. It's tremendously fun. It's a really cool way of playing, and it really supports the whole yes and concept of tabletop RPGs. So, how does our Session Zero differ from a normal Session Zero? Well, I guess we should start off by what is a normal Session Zero. So Session Zeros are typically a time for the GM to have the players to gather and discuss some important details of the campaign before it even starts. These details include things like scheduling and frequency and duration, but more importantly, the concept and the tone that you want to give. And on top of that, safety measures that people might want to take to know that they have a good time around the table. All these are great things. All these are very important things. But usually beyond character creation, maybe a little tiny adventure for everyone to kind of get things going, that's usually where it stops. But in OSR Plus, we do so much more. So how does the OSR Plus Session Zero differ? Well, first off, it starts with the promise of a premise. And in that, we use a pitch deck. So what is a pitch deck? What is a promise premise? What the fuck are you talking about, Johnny? The pitch deck is basically a slideshow. This one's from God Beyond the Portal, which is a campaign I'm currently involved in, run by DQ himself, and has been featured twice now in these videos. First on the character creation video, when I introduced Melv, as well as an actual play in the backstory video. So yeah, I'm just going to run through this real quick. I'm not going to linger on it, but just want to give you an example of what they look like. So yeah, it starts off setting the tone, telling the story, really putting in that creep factor, a little backstory of what was happening before the current events, but then leading us right into the current events and landing us with the conflict of the Empire rolling through all these lands and trying to take over. That guy's an asshole. You know, everyone's out for power. This is where our story will be taking place. You know, real lonesome and creepy, like I said. And then we get introduced to the different factions. And these are different factions that the players can align themselves to and kind of give yourself a little history. Several to choose from. And then we start getting into this little like tarot card thing, which is just a little bit more motivation for each player, what brought them into the fold. And you see that paired with the archetypes, which are going to be an extra mechanic added specifically just for this campaign. And then back to the meaning of the different tarot cards, and just basically saying, you know, it's the motivation for why we were drawn to this church that is going to be a key part to this whole story. So yeah, just a fun little way to really get in the headspace of the game that's about to happen. So that's what starts off. And through that, we have the promise of a premise. And what that is basically a social contract between the GM and the player that sets the expectation at the table of the tone that the story is going to follow and the characters that we should create for it. And as you can imagine, in this, we're not making screwball characters. There's always going to be a little bit of comedy just because we like to have fun and it's a game, but this campaign in particular is really psychologically driven, and it really tries to pull on the emotions of the players. And once again, session 0, we establish what we're okay with dealing, what terms we want to talk about, what things are off the table, both literally and figuratively, and it's just an important part of it. So moving from that, the promise of the premise, the next part of the OSR Plus session 0 is bonds.
Bond. James Bond.
So the way we handle bonds in our session 0s is that we'll each roll a die to decide who we're bonded with. Now this could go in a game of like 3 players. It's pretty easy. It just goes around in a circle. Player A has one with B, player B has one with C, player C has one with player A. But when there's more than 3 people, it gets a little more complicated and can take varying forms. Usually we do just roll for it randomly, and so that means that one player can have a bond with everyone, and then there'll still be just another paired off on top of that. And that's what happened in God Beyond the Portal. So instead of me trying to explain it further, why don't I just show you with a little bit of video clip. Now you'll have to excuse me, the clip's gonna be a little bit rough on the cuts because I just took 40 minutes of conversation and condensed it down to 4 minutes.
So let's figure out our bonds first. And it might be a lot of overlap, which is fine. All right, so Courtney rolled a 4. So you're bonded with John. David, so give me a D4.
I rolled a 1.
All right, so Autumn is who you're bonded to. And John.
I have rolled a 2.
2, David. Autumn.
1.
So John. All right, now let's figure out the bonds for each one of these. So Autumn to John. Roll a D12.
7.
The star-crossed. You and they share a secret no one else knows that could be calamitous if revealed, or both of you experience the same event that changed you. David, this is your bond with Autumn.
6.
6, the blackmail. You know something about them or vice versa and are keeping it secret because you have something on them or vice versa. Courtney, D12 with, who is this with
John.
With John, all right.
11.
A colleague. You both work for the same person, but maybe you don't realize it. Are you rivals or collaborators? Either way, it makes more sense to work together for now. And John.
2.
The partner in crime. So they helped you obtain something valuable to you, and now you're implicated or liable for what was taken. So, going all the way back, actually, because Courtney, you're all alone, I have you start. So you have the colleague with John. What are your thoughts about that so far? So, are you satisfied with the colleague there for the moment?
Yeah, I like that we were doing some sort of ritual. You heard a commotion when you were traveling and came to see us being harassed by these people and kind of swooped in and saved us very violently.
You proceeded to like employ me in other ways.
It was like we saw you perform feats of strength, and it's like you seem very useful, so yeah.
And help give me purpose as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I would like to go to Autumn now and your relationship with David's character on the blackmail. So he saw your true face.
Yeah, which
In
has
death,
like
they
a
saw your
star
true
or
face.
something on it, and then maybe David came across me in my true form too, and was like,
I do like that. Yeah, that
Okay.
makes a little bit more
cool,
logic.
cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Makes more sense then, because the reason why I asked the question of like, if you had sought her out through reputation, she's an informant, so that shouldn't work. So it sounds like that instead, because you had touched the person that she killed to preserve her secret, wherever he encountered you, even randomly, he recognized your face, and then he could sense that you don't actually have the sight. Let's see, David and John, partners in crime.
So yeah, maybe what happened was the vision that you saw that got you the blackmail. You also the argument was about that thing. And the person was like, "You're a fraud," and she's like, "I'm not a fraud." And we killed him. And maybe it was like an accidental death, or maybe it was intentional.
Yeah.
I'll leave that up to Autumn's character.
Yeah.
But then you saw the item, or you knew the item they're talking about, and you basically hired me, like almost retainer-esque, to do that.
To get it as leverage.
Yeah.
As insurance against her.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what the prince will do to you if you were to tell her that she's false. Like, you don't really know the prince, but this would be leverage. All right, so Autumn and yours was Star-crossed.
So instead of more of that, what if before, when you're like raiding villages and things, what if I was there during that and somehow tried to, I don't know why I would be there. Maybe I was like in the town talking to somebody at that point, and maybe I tried to save your beloved or like help her. Maybe even she's my sister. So we kind of hung out beforehand, and so I kind of know you, and then your friends all come in and they kill everybody in the village, except I see you like weeping over.
Freaking out, yeah.
Yeah, and like freaking out and killing everybody.
I got it.
Wow.
I know how she got me out. She turned into me.
Oh.
And she went a different direction. And
Oh,
then
it's
when
a
they
split
like
it
came
up.
into the stair, and she was just like sitting there as
Nice.
herself.
Oh man. All right.
And like I might not know
Oh,
that
yes.
aspect, but that was like
Fantastic.
the yeah.
All right, we've solved these bonds. Now, I want to go back to Courtney because she's kind of in the midst of all these things. And I want to give you some opportunities to build a little bit of the relationships within the Mora and with Lady Catrius.
So you can see how this keeps evolving. Now, that's not where it ends, though. After setting up the initial bonds, we will then start rolling for story hooks. So let me show you an example of the story hooks here. This is coming directly from the OSR Plus site, which will be linked down there. And you can see they range from things like magical artifacts or a dangerous machine of great power, to an armament tool or instrument of your craft, to a dear pet, magical familiar, or strange homunculus. Moving on to places, we have festivals or celebrations, a distant land or trade route, or a forgotten village. And things on groups. So this is talking about larger groups that are important to the character. So a religious sect, a rebel bloc, a merchant company, all examples. And then finally people, which is more of an individual, something a little more near and dear to the heart. We have a hero or celebrity, a beast, could be a pet, could be something you've hunted. Each player will roll and get an individual one of these for each of the 4 categories. And what they'll do is they can tie them all together if they want, or can just make individual parts of their life. And as we're all talking about this around the table, we start collaborating, and you're like, oh, well, your secret place is a ruin, and mine was a holy ground. Maybe they're one and the same. And you start developing the story in deeper and more meaningful ways. I can't stress to you how much this affects a campaign in a positive way, because it is no longer just the brainchild of the GM, but before the very first game, everyone is now collaborating and playing a part at the table. So now that we have all the story hooks laid out, then the players want to go and take that new information and finalize their bonds. The GM will then recap everything to make sure we're on the same page, and allow the players to start choosing which factions they want to join, what archetypes they might use if applicable, and finally to create their character. The GM should be able to answer these questions on their own, and that is, what brought the group together, what keeps them together, what does everyone contribute, and finally, what is their shared goal? Now, I don't know how you would get to those answers without going through this process. I mean, you could have everyone write a 3-page backstory, but you know how I feel about that, and it kind of loses the whole collaboration aspect of it. So in conclusion, instead of just using a session 0 as an administrative action, use it to breathe life into your campaign before it even starts. Allow your players to gather and start building the world from minute 0. You'll thank me later. Tabletop RPGs rock. Hell yeah, fuck yeah. There will be plenty more videos on OSR Plus. Trust me, I have so much to show you all.